Hello everyone, Zios on this side. So today hand we are dealing with a topic called as micturition or the process of urine excretion. Okay, so let's get started. So here the urine is formed by the nephron and it is ultimately carried to the urinary bladder by means of ureters. Okay, where it is stored till a voluntary signal is given by the central nervous system. Okay, so the urine is temporarily stored in urinary bladder until there is a signal which is given by the central nervous system, and that signal is basically initiated by stretching of the urinary bladder, as it gets filled with the urine. Okay, and in response of that, the stretch receptor, which means the sensory receptors on the walls of the bladder, send signal to the CNS. Please do remember one thing: whenever an organ is sending any signal to the central nervous system, okay, whenever an organ is sending any signal to the central nervous system, that signal or that neuron will be called as sensory. Okay, so from organ to the CNS will be called as sensory signal, whereas the CNS passes the motor message. To initiate the contraction of the smooth muscle of the bladder and simultaneously relaxation of the urethral sphincter. Now, here the motor word. So do remember one thing: from the central nervous system to any organ, if the signal is sent from the central nervous system to any organ, it will be called as a motor signal. From organ to central nervous system, it is sensory, whereas from the central nervous system to the organ or vice versa position, it will be called as motor. So ultimately, the CNS is sending a signal to initiate the contraction of the smooth muscle of the urinary bladder and the relaxation of the urethral sphincter, causing the release of the urine. That is what we call as a micturition. Okay, so the process of release of the urine is called as micturition. And the neural mechanism causing it is called as a micturition reflex. Okay, because it is just the reaction of an action. Okay, so first the signal has been sent from the urinary bladder to the CNS, whereas the result has come from the CNS to the urinary bladder to release the urine, and this process will be called as micturition. Deal with. Now, an adult human excretes basically on an average 1 to 1.5 liters of urine per day. So basically we are excreting 1 to 1.5 liters of the urine per day. It may differ from person to person, individual to individual. And the normal urine formed is a light yellow colored watery fluid, amber colored watery fluid, which is slightly acidic. The normal pH of the urine is 6 and it has a characteristic odor. Okay, so the human urine does have a characteristic odor or smell. On an average 25 to 30 gram of urea is excreted out per day. Do remember one thing, that 25 to 30 gram of urea is excreted out per day, and you can go through the amount of the water which is required to eliminate 1 gram of urea is almost 50 ml. So we can calculate how much amount of the water is excreted out by means of urine per day. Okay, now various conditions can affect the characteristic of the urine as well. Analysis of urine helps in clinical diagnosis of many metabolic disorders as well as the malfunctioning of kidney. Hopefully you have gone through the case for example, presence of glucose. The test is called as GTT. What is the full form of the GTT? It is glucose tolerance test. So basically, what they are doing in the clinical diagnosis, they are just checking out either the excess amount of the glucose is present in the urine or not, and if it is present, the condition will be called as glycosuria. Presence of glucose in the urine is called as glycosuria. Okay, and the presence of the ketone bodies as well. So here the presence of the ketone bodies in the urine will be called as ketonuria. Do remember one thing, whenever the ketone bodies are present in the Whenever the ketone bodies are present in the human urine, or rather the glucose is present in the human urine, these are the indication of diabetes mellitus. These are the indication of diabetes mellitus. Please deal with the case, and the enough amount of the ketone bodies should be removed from the diabetic patient. Okay, deal with. So this was all about the micturition. Now dealing with the next topic called as a role of other organs in excretion. Yes, other than the kidney, there are some organs which are playing an important role in the excretion. Yes, what are the names of those organs? They are lungs, livers, and the skin. Lungs, liver, and the skin. They are also helpful in elimination of the excretory waste. So basically dealing with the first thing first, it is the lungs. So the lungs are removing the large amount of the carbon dioxide. Large amount of the carbon dioxide, which is 200 ml per minute. 200 ml per minute. So you can go through. Okay, 200 ml of the carbon dioxide has been removed every minute from our body, and does also a significant quantity of the water every day. Yes, there is excretion of water by means of lungs as well. Rather, that is in the form of the water. I'll be going for the word that is in the form of the water vapors. Okay, go through. Now, liver, the largest gland in the body. Liver is the largest gland in the body. It is secreting bile containing substances, specifically bilirubin and the biliverdin. Majority of the time it's bilirubin only. So bilirubin and the biliverdin, even the cholesterol, degraded steroid hormone, vitamins and drugs as well. Because yes, our liver is working as a detoxification center, so ultimately it will be excreting drugs as well. So vitamins, steroid hormones, cholesterol, bilirubin, bilirubin, and the drugs. Majority of these substances ultimately pass out along with the digestive waste by means of bile. The undigested food material, along with the undigested food material, they'll be excreted out by means of feces. Okay, go through. Now, the sweat and the sebaceous glands. The sweat and the sebaceous gland in the skin can eliminate certain substances through their secretions. How come? The sweat which is produced by the sweat glands is a watery fluid containing normal salt, NaCl, the sodium chloride, even a small amount of urea, lactic acid as well. The anaerobic breakdown metabolism of glucose molecule will be resulting as lactic acid. So what are the contents of the sweat? The first one will be called as a water with sodium chloride, then a small amount of urea, then the last but not the least one, the lactic acid, etc, etc, etc. Okay, deal with. Through the primary functions of the sweat is to facilitate a cooling effect. The primary function of the sweat is to facilitate a cooling effect on the body surface, but it does helps in the removal of some of the waste mentioned above. So the primary concept of the sweat is to facilitate a cooling effect, but the secondary purpose of the sweat will be to remove a small amount of urea as well and the small amount of lactic acid along with the water in the NaCl. Okay, go through. The second is called as the sebaceous gland. Okay, so what is the meaning of sebaceous glands? These are responsible for elimination of the sterol, hydrocarbon and the waxes. The glands which are responsible for excretion of waxes or secretion of waxes, so they will be called as sebaceous glands. Okay, they are removing the sterol, the hydrocarbon and the waxes through sebum, the waxy secretion. These secretions provide a protective oily covering for the skin. Okay, these secretions provide a protective oily covering for the skin. Whenever in the morning you are waking up, just check your skin, just check your cheek skin especially, you will be finding a little amount of oil there. That is nothing but the sebum. Okay, that is nothing but the sebum. One extra thing, hopefully you do know this, but still for the sake of knowledge only, small amount of nitrogenous waste could be eliminated through the saliva too. Deal with the case. Yes, in the saliva as well, a little amount of nitrogenous waste can be eliminated. Okay, go through. So this was all about the micturition, the urine formation and the other organs as well which are working as excretory organ. Okay, hopefully this lecture has been beneficial for you guys. Thank you very much for your so much support. If you do have any kind of questions, you can ask me there in the comment section. Thank you.